Hey guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave. So today I'll be continuing on with awesome games from A to Z. And today's letter is L. And I'm going to start off like I typically do with some Atari. And this one was the first one that came to mind, and it's Laser Blast. Now I have played it a little bit. I haven't, it's one of those games where it's like, you kind of pop it in, you play it for a little bit, and then you're done. There's not a whole lot going on. You're kind of going around from the top this time instead of on the bottom, or a lot of these games you're usually like on the bottom, like Space Invader style or whatever. So this one you're actually on the top and you're shooting lasers down. You're trying to blow things up on the ground. It's kind of like an opposite sort of, I don't know, like a missile command sort of thing, where you're actually trying to blow up the stuff on the bottom and rather than try and save it. But I mean, ultimately it's not a bad game. You blow up the stuff on the bottom, and then you move on to the next screen, and it gets harder and harder. I definitely need to like spend a little bit more time on this one again. It's one of those games I kind of picked up. It's Activision. This one obviously has got some kid's name written on it. I hate when people do that. They black marker all over the label. Like, what were you thinking? You could have put some tape on the back. I guess it was to make sure that nobody stole this game or something. Maybe the parents did it, or who knows? Maybe the kid took it over to his friend's house, and I don't know. You really ruined the Activision logo right there. It's just destroyed. Anyways, I bought this from Goodwill for 50 cents. So I really can't complain. I mean, that was when I used to go in, this was probably in the 90s. I used to go into Goodwill all the time, and I'd just be like grabbing stacks of Atari games for like 50 to 90 cents each. Pretty cool. I wish those days were still here, but unfortunately not happening anymore. The other Atari game I wanted to point out was this little gem, Lost Luggage. And I have done a video on this. I think it was an odd games video. Because it's an odd game. It's an odd title. It's got a really weird picture on there of people catching their luggage flying off the plane. It's made by Apollo. They got a bunch of titles out there. It's really kind of fun. It's kind of like the game Kaboom in a way. Only you're catching luggage, and it's a really interesting but odd title, which is why I kind of had an odd game. But yeah, I mean, this one's pretty decent. If you want to check it out, I have a video on it already. Moving on to the other one that I know I've also talked about before, and that's Locke and Chase. And this is also, this is the Atari one, but I like Locke and Chase mostly on the Intellivision, which is, in my opinion, a lot more colorful, a lot more going on. This is an arcade port, so it's based off an actual arcade game, and it was ported onto a few different systems. This one's not too bad. I mean, it's pretty decent for like a Pac-Man style game on the Atari. It's obviously better than the original Pac-Man on the Atari. There's more going on, and I mean, the graphics are okay, the sound is okay, but I really prefer the Intellivision version, and I think I did a comparison video showing off the two. But yeah, I mean, they're pretty decent. The other title I wanted to move on to, which didn't make its way onto the Atari for some reason. Well, it did in a homebrew, a newer homebrew kind of game. But I mean, in the original lineup, and that's Ladybug, and that's a game I didn't really have a whole lot of experience with when I was a kid because I didn't have a system that played it. I did. It came out on the Intellivision, but I didn't have it. But it was like, I remember always seeing it on the ColecoVision. Just never had much experience with it, so by the time I actually got my hands on it, I got the ColecoVision version. Then I ended up getting the Intellivision version, and it's actually pretty good. It's sort of like Locke and Chase. Again, it's an arcade port, popular from the arcade days. And why it didn't get it ported onto the Atari, I don't know. I mean, I have seen pictures of the homebrew one, which does look pretty cool. But it's a typical dot gobbling game. You kind of run around. It's almost like Mousetrap as well. I mean, there's a lot of these dot gobbling games. I just like that it has a little bit more to it than just eating the dots. And this next one that I want to show you is an oddball one. And it falls under L because it's technically called Las Vegas Poker and Blackjack. And this is a weird one because this is for the Intellivision, and this came with the Intellivision. At least it did for my Intellivision. So it's like, oops, just dropped the thing on the floor there. But yeah, the this game actually came with the system. So when you first got your television, pretty much all you could play, unless you bought games with it, was poker and blackjack. And I got we got our Intellivision when I was a kid. So it was kind of weird that I was playing like poker and blackjack as a kid. I didn't even understand the rules. I didn't even know what was going on. You can see on the back there, you got the dealer up there. I didn't even know what he was. I thought he was a doctor. He looks like a doctor to me. I was like, why am I playing cards against a doctor? I didn't get it. I was too young to understand really, cards at that point. But I was just playing it. I was just, throwing cards on the field. I probably learned how to play poker just from this, and blackjack actually, just from playing this game and not knowing what the heck I was doing, just throwing random cards out there. It's a really weird pack-in game. Why they put it on this, like why they gave it away. Why not like Locke and Chase or one of the other, Astro Smash would have even made more sense. There's probably a lot of games they could have packed in there other than this. So it was a really odd choice, and I don't know if I've ever got an answer from anywhere as to why it was done that way. There is another one that starts with L for the Intellivision, but I don't have a whole lot of experience with, but I always thought it was fascinating, and that's Learning Fun. I believe there's two of them. There's Learning Fun 1 and 2. I think the second one's a little bit more rare, but it's essentially a learning game. The Intellivision had a bunch of learning titles, just like Atari, and a lot of the systems of the day had learning titles, so it wasn't obscure. And I always saw it in the manual. Like when I was flipping through my the little manuals that came with all the different games in them. Every Intellivision game had it. I don't know if I saw one in here when I was. No, there's not one in here. Just the actual game manual. But there's a little manual that came with it, that kind of like a catalog of all different games. And I always remember seeing that one in there. And it looked fascinating. I mean, there's one for math, and then it's called Math Fun, and then there's Learning Fun, and I mean they looked interesting when I was a kid. Today I probably wouldn't bother, right? It's their kids' game, so why would I want to play it? It's kind of like playing a Sesame Street game or anything like that. It's meant for the little kids if you wanted to get them into learning and not just playing video games. But kind of neat to see that back in the day. The next game I want to move on to, and this one this was probably the first game that came to my mind when I was trying to think of L games, and it was one I played on the Commodore 64 called Lunar Leaper. And it's a really weird game. I mean, it's kind of like, think of Choplifter, if you're familiar with that title, where you're a helicopter. In Choplifter, you're a helicopter, you have to go and rescue people on the ground from, soldiers and stuff. And you literally pick them up and you take them to a safe place. Well, Lunar Leaper is exactly the same, except you're on this kind of like, maybe you're on the moon? I don't know, maybe that's why you call it Lunar Leaper. You're in this like space area, and there's these weird little alien dudes. They look like eyeballs with legs. Or they kind of look like a fried egg with legs. I don't know, they look weird. And they're kind of wandering around, and then there's like these little spacemen, and you gotta fly your spaceship, and you pick them up by landing on their head, and then I guess it's like magnetic or something grabs them, you pull them up, and you take them to the safe place. And the reason why it's called Lunar Leaper is because these little egg people, they will jump every once in a while. So you might be flying over the top of several of them, and they will just all of a sudden jump, and they might grab the person and eat it. So it's kind of a neat game. It's something I've been wanting to actually showcase on my channel at some point. I need to get back into playing some more Commodore 64 games. But yeah, it's definitely a game that I always think about, and I used to play it a lot. I was like hooked on it for a little while. It's kind of a fun game. It's kind of interesting. It's not very visually pleasing. I mean, it's almost like black and white. Like it's supposed to look like, I guess, you're in space. So very, very plain looking graphics, but fun nonetheless. Like I've always enjoyed it. The last game that I have here on my little list is Loadrunner. This is a game that kind of always fascinated me, and yet I haven't really sat down and played it much. In fact, I don't even know if I've actually played it in a long time. And it stuck with me because I remember when I was a kid seeing it on a neighbor's computer. And it wasn't like my neighbor on the street. It was actually at my cottage. Someone actually had a computer. Like it was probably like an old IBM computer or something like that, or an Apple, or I don't know. When I was a kid, I didn't know the difference between one computer or the other. But I remember they had this computer and they were playing this game, and I sat down and I started playing it for a little while. And this would have been on, like, you know, you're using a keyboard controller, you know, your arrow keys. And I was having a lot of fun. I mean, you're going up and down the ladders. You got to fill in these little spaces and stuff. You had to do all this stuff. And I was like, I wasn't used to games like that. I was like, this is an awesome game. And so I always wanted to get it, but I never ended up having it on my Commodore 64. And it didn't exist on the Intellivision. It didn't exist on the Atari. So it's just kind of a game that I just didn't really get. And then one day I remember, actually, when I was a little bit older, well, you know, several years older, I found it on PlayStation. And I bought it off the shelf, brand new, sealed in package. And I think I came home and I was like, oh, this is going to be a lot of fun. I put it down and I totally forgot I bought it. I don't know why. I got busy doing stuff and I forgot I bought it. And it kind of just ended up in my pile of games. And I just never, I think even to this day, I still haven't even opened it. And I don't know why. I was just like, I would probably enjoy playing this game, and yet I haven't opened it. So it's probably still in my PlayStation collection, which now that I think about it, I should go and dig it out. And I'm pretty sure it was still sealed, which is really weird that I bought a game wanting to play it, and then I never ended up playing it. Although I'm sure a lot of people do end up in that scenario where they purchase games with the intent of playing it, and it kind of goes into a pile. We all kind of get to that stage where we have more games than time to play them, so it's kind of interesting. But yeah, it's definitely something I've been, you know, trying to keep in the back of my head. Got to get that game. I got to open it up. I mean, I've just been playing PlayStation games recently on my channel, so maybe that's a good opportunity to actually find it and play it. Anyways, yeah, that's my list of L games. I was trying to find more that would, you know, give me something to talk about. But, I mean, L, there isn't a whole lot of games. I didn't really go too much into, like, say, the Nintendo, Sega titles, so maybe I missed some. So if I did miss some, throw the suggestions down there, what I might have missed. Or maybe I missed some PlayStation titles or something, I don't know. I'm sure there's quite a few L's that I probably missed. But these are the ones that I remember, these are the ones that I played, and just that stuck to my mind. Anyways, hope you liked the list. Let me know what you think of my choices, and have you played any of the games? Do you have any memories of the games? I'd love to hear it. Leave some comments down below. Hope you subscribe to my channel. Talk to you later.